I was carefully arranging the silver cutlery next to the porcelain plates on the dining room table, the savory aroma of slow-roasted herb chicken filling the air. When the silence was shattered, my phone buzzed sharply against the mahogany surface. A quick glance at the illuminated screen confirmed it was my husband, Derek. He should have been buried in case files at his law firm, working late as usual. "Hello?" I answered, hastily wiping my hands on a linen dish towel before pressing the speaker button. "Elena, we need to talk." Derek's voice was disturbingly calm, possessing the detached professional tone he usually reserved for difficult clients. "Not his wife. Next week on Wednesday, the whole family is heading to Palm Springs for the annual getaway. I've already booked the first-class plane tickets and secured a private vacation rental." My knuckles turned ivory white as I gripped the marble countertop, a sudden, familiar constriction tightening around my chest like a vice. This was the third time. My voice, eerily composed in the suffocating calm before the emotional storm, came out sounding unnaturally placid. "The whole family, you say? Your parents, your brother Brian and his new fiancée, your aunt, and your cousin. That's 6 people." I forced a deliberately cheerful, almost helpful tone, masking the sinking feeling in my gut. "The rental you booked usually only has 3 bedrooms. If there are too many of us, it'll be a hassle with the sleeping arrangements. So, you don't have to worry about me coming." I took a deep, trembling breath, my eyes scanning the meticulously prepared meal cooling on the dining room table. 2 gourmet main courses and a seasonal soup, all of Derek's absolute favorites. Now, all that culinary effort, along with my foolish hopes for a quiet, intimate dinner to reconnect, was destined for the garbage disposal. "Oh, I see. Well, you all have a wonderful time." My voice sounded like a distant echo detached from my body. "I knew you'd understand, Elena. You're the most accommodating person I know." I could practically hear his sigh of relief through the receiver. "Oh, and while I'm gone on the trip, don't forget to water the imported roses in the garden and my collection of rare succulents. They need specific care." "Right, okay." I hung up, standing frozen in the center of my kitchen. The phone screen went black, mirroring the light extinguishing inside my heart. The third time. 3 years of marriage, and not once had I been invited on their sacred annual family trip. The first year, the excuse was fragile. I had just suffered a miscarriage, and they claimed a long trip would be too much for my recovery. The second year, they claimed my job was too demanding and it would be a burden for me to take time off. This year? He hadn't even bothered to fabricate a convincing excuse. He just assumed I would disappear. I began to clear the table mechanically, scraping the untouched roasted chicken into the trash bin. I felt cheated. Not just out of a vacation, but out of the life I was promised. Suddenly, my wrist trembled violently, and a heavy ceramic plate slipped from my soapy fingers, shattering against the travertined floor. The sharp shards scattered across the tile, glistening under the kitchen lights. How they looked so much like me at that moment, a marriage that appeared polished and brilliant on the outside, yet crumbled into dangerous pieces at the slightest touch. My phone buzzed again, vibrating with a new notification. It was the family group chat. A message from my mother-in-law popped up. "Guys, we're doing Palm Springs again this year. We leave Wednesday, so don't forget the high SPF sunscreen. They say it's going to be scorching hot." A flurry of celebratory emojis followed from everyone else. I stared at the words, blurring through my watering eyes. The whole family. My eyes welled up with hot, angry tears. To them, I wasn't family. I was just a stranger, a glorified, unpaid housekeeper who maintained their assets while they lived their lives. I scrolled up and pulled out a digital photo from last year's trip to San Diego. Derek had his arm tightly around his brother Brian. My mother-in-law, dressed in a flashy designer sundress, sat like a queen in the center, and my father-in-law stood solemnly to the side. Next to them were his cousin and Brian's girlfriend at the time. All 7 of them were beaming, teeth white against the backdrop of the deep blue ocean and swaying palm trees. That day, I had been home alone, shivering with a high fever of 103 degrees. I had called Derek for comfort, and he had told me, "Take some Tylenol and sleep it off. You'll be fine. We're on a boat and the signal is choppy. Got to go." And he had hung up. I sank to the kitchen floor, picking up the jagged ceramic pieces one by one. A shard sliced my finger, and a drop of crimson blood welled up, but the sharp physical pain was nothing compared to the dull, hollow ache rotting in my soul. My phone rang again, jarring me from my spiraling thoughts. It was my best friend, Chloe, requesting a video call. I quickly wiped my eyes on my sleeve, plastered on a fake, brittle smile, and answered. Chloe. You wouldn't believe the nightmare client who walked into the agency today. I started trying to deflect. Chloe's voice stopped abruptly. She squinted, bringing her face uncomfortably close to the camera lens. What is wrong with you? Your eyes are bloodshot and puffy. Nothing, I lied, turning away slightly. I was just cutting some shallots for the vinaigrette, and they really stung. I tried to widen my smile, but it felt like cracking plaster. It didn't reach my eyes. Don't lie to me, Elena. Do you think I've known you for over a decade for nothing? Chloe's brow furrowed, her lawyer instincts kicking in. What did that jerk Derek do this time? Under her piercing, no-nonsense gaze, my armor crumbled completely. In a few hushed, trembling words, I explained everything: the exclusion from the trip, the cold phone call, the feeling of being an outsider in my own marriage. My voice dropped to a whisper. I feel like I'm the one being made fun of. Like I'm a joke. You? It's Derek and his toxic circus of a family who are making fools of themselves, Chloe snapped, her voice sharp. Elena, wake up. These people don't see you as family. They see you as a resource. I fell silent. Deep down, I already knew it. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. 3 years ago, at our stunning vineyard wedding, Derek had knelt and promised me eternal happiness. The image was still vivid in my mind. How had we gotten here in the blink of an eye? Elena, Chloe's voice suddenly turned serious, shifting from best friend to legal strategist. You remember you signed a prenup, right? I nodded slowly. It was a month before the wedding. Derek had suddenly proposed a prenuptial agreement, claiming it was a black family tradition to protect ancestral assets. Although it made me uncomfortable, I signed it to prove I wasn't after his money. The house is in your name. That's a separate asset, right? Chloe pressed. It was a wedding gift from your parents. We registered it as your exclusive property. I frowned, confused by her line of questioning. Why do you ask? No reason, Chloe hesitated, biting her lip. I just want you to take better care of yourself. But answer me. Is it still just in your name? Well, I hesitated. About 6 months after the wedding, Derek insisted on adding his name. He said his co-workers' wives had done it, and he was the only one who hadn't, and he was embarrassed at the firm. He said it was for appearance's sake. And I, being a softie who wanted him to feel secure, agreed. I forced a bitter smile at the memory. Chloe's fingers flew across her keyboard on the other end. This is a bit complicated, but since it started as a separate asset and you paid the down payment, that part and the appreciation should theoretically belong to you. Who paid for the extensive renovation last year? Mostly me, I replied. With the money I saved from my bonuses, about $90,000. Derek's family contributed maybe $15,000 for furniture. Do you have proof? Yes, I kept the renovation contract and all the receipts in the cloud. Chloe looked satisfied, but her eyes were still dark with suspicion. The next thing is to gather evidence. Do you know exactly how much Derek earns? The question left me blank. Derek's income. Since we got married, we'd each managed our own money. He had given me an approximate figure, but I had never asked for the pay stubs. He earns about $180,000 a year, I think. He gives me $200 a month for household expenses. The rest we handle on our own. Chloe's eyebrows nearly met in the middle. What? You've been married for 3 years, and you still have separate accounts. And he contributes peanuts? And I've been paying the mortgage on the house. My voice trailed off, the realization heavy on my tongue. Derek said he had to invest his money, and his parents were getting older, so he had to have a cushion for medical expenses. Elena. Chloe slammed her hand on her desk. Don't you realize they're scamming you? That's not a normal marriage. That's a financial parasite attached to a host. My eyes filled with tears again. Even to me, hearing it out loud, it sounded ridiculous. To others, I was the woman who lived in a luxurious house and drove a high-end SUV. But the reality was I had to think twice before buying a decent winter coat. Meanwhile, Derek had gifted his mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, a $20,000 gold bracelet for her birthday without a second thought. We need to find out his true financial situation, Chloe said with a serious tone. Do you have access to his computer or documents? The home office is always locked. He says he has confidential client information. Suddenly, a memory flashed in my mind. But I have an emergency key hidden in the garage. I could go in when he's not there. Be careful. You can't let him find out, she warned me. The most important things are bank statements, investment records, and... She paused, her voice softening. Do you have any proof of infidelity? My heart skipped a beat. Infidelity. A possibility I had tried to ignore with all my might was finally coming to the surface, demanding to be seen. After Chloe left, the silence in the house felt heavy, suffocating. I stood in front of the heavy oak door of Derek's home office, the emergency key sweating in my palm. When we got married, we promised to respect each other's privacy, a vow I held sacred. Because of that, I had never entered his personal sanctuary without permission. Today, I had to break that rule to save myself. The sound of the key turning in the lock seemed unnaturally loud, like a gunshot in a library. When I pushed the door open, a faint, lingering smell of his expensive cologne, sandalwood, and musk hit me. The office was impeccably tidy, almost sterile. The leather-bound law books on the shelf were arranged by height, and there wasn't a speck of dust on the mahogany desk. It was the workspace of a man who controlled everything. I checked the drawers with trembling fingers. In the top one, just mundane office supplies. In the middle one, several photo albums. I opened them at random, my heart sinking. They only contained pictures of Derek and his parents, or Derek and his brother-in-law, Brian. There were only a few token photos of the two of us tucked in the back. The bottom drawer was locked. That anomaly only fueled the fire of my suspicion. Looking around, my eyes fell on a small, digital safe hidden behind a row of tax law manuals on the bookshelf. Derek had bought it last year, claiming he needed it to store sensitive client files. I took a deep breath. I tried our wedding anniversary. Error. I tried his birthday. Error. Finally, acting on a gut instinct about who truly held the most importance in his life, I entered my mother-in-law's birthday. Click. The safe door swung open. Inside, there was a stack of well-organized documents. Sitting right on top was a copy of the property deed. My blood ran cold as I unfolded it. It was the deed to my house, my sanctuary, but under the owner section, it clearly stated Derek Black and Elena Miller in a joint tenancy. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. I remembered perfectly that in the beginning, we agreed it was a tenancy in common with him having a minority share. Even worse, the notary stamp and my own signature on the deed looked slightly off. The loops in the E were too wide. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a deliberate falsification of documents. I continued searching, digging deeper into the betrayal. I found several recent bank statements from an offshore account I didn't know existed. The balance at the bottom of the page stunned me into silence. It wasn't the modest $150,000 rainy day fund he had told me about. It was nearly $1.8 million. Furthermore, skimming the transaction history, I saw monthly recurring transfers ranging between $3,000 and $15,000 to a Jessica. This was a textbook case of dissipation of marital assets, siphoning our future away to another woman. At the very bottom of the safe lay an elegant, velvet jewelry case in that iconic robin's egg blue. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside nestled a diamond necklace I had never seen in my life, a solitaire pendant that caught the light mockingly. The receipt tucked underneath said Tiffany's. The price exceeded $28,000. The purchase date was my birthday last year. My actual gift from him had been a generic bouquet of grocery store flowers and a card he signed without reading. Under the case was a printed photograph. Derek was hugging a young, blonde woman by a resort pool. They were wearing matching designer swimsuits and smiling radiantly, looking like the perfect couple. On the back, in my husband's distinctive handwriting, was a note. To my love, Jessica, best family trip ever. Palm Springs, August 2024. That was the exact week he had claimed to be on a grueling business trip to Chicago. My world came crashing down. All his extra hours at the firm, the successive absences, the inexplicable tightness with money while buying gold for his mother, everything made sickening sense. The vibration of my phone in my pocket almost made me drop the damning photo. It was a text from Derek. Honey, I won't make it for dinner tonight. Urgent work dinner with a senior partner. Don't wait up. I stared at the message, a fresh lie delivered straight to my hand. Then I clicked on his profile picture on WhatsApp, which he had just updated. He was sitting in a dimly lit, luxurious steakhouse. Reflected clearly in his oversized wine glass was a hand with manicured red nails resting on the other side of the table. When I zoomed in on the image, the silhouettes of him and a long-haired woman could be seen in the window's reflection behind him. In that moment, the fog in my mind cleared. The confusion vanished, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. All my doubts and self-blame found their answers. I wasn't paranoid, crazy, or overly sensitive. I was just an idiot who was being cheated on by a master manipulator. Calmly, with the precision of a surgeon, I took high-resolution pictures of all the evidence, the bank statements, the forged deed, the necklace receipt, the photo, and sent them directly to Chloe's encrypted email server. Then, I put everything back exactly as I found it. I wiped the safe keypad with my sleeve, closed the office door, and locked it. The war had begun. At 10:30 p.m., the front door unlocked. Derek stumbled in, bringing with him the distinct, sour smell of expensive scotch masked by breath mints. Sitting on the living room sofa in the dark, I watched him with an empty gaze as he struggled to take off his Italian loafers. "Honey? You're still awake?" He walked over, leaning in to kiss my cheek, but I turned my head away just in time. The air around him shifted. "You smell like perfume," I said, my voice flat, devoid of the usual warmth. "I don't like it." Derek froze for a split second, a flicker of panic crossing his eyes before he laughed, a hollow, practiced sound. "It was for work, honey. It must have rubbed off on me in the elevator or something. Those senior partners' wives wear really strong cologne." "Oh, really?" I looked him directly in the eyes, searching for a shred of the man I married. "Is that Jessica a client's wife, too?" Derek's expression petrified. His drunkenness seemed to evaporate instantly, replaced by sharp alertness. "What? Who? What are you talking about?" "Nothing." I stood up slowly, smoothing down my silk robe. "It just occurred to me. You must be exhausted having to entertain that client so many times a month." Derek's face went from flushed red to sheet white. He took a step forward, reaching for my arm. "Elena, listen to me. I can explain. You're misunderstanding." "You don't need to explain anything." I cut him off, yawning deliberately. "I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. I have to go buy those gift boxes for your mom tomorrow morning. The gold ones, right? You didn't forget, did you?" I turned around and walked into the bedroom, leaving him standing alone in the living room with a completely bewildered expression. As I closed the bedroom door, I leaned against it, my heart hammering against my ribs. I heard his nervous, pacing footsteps outside and his hushed, frantic whispering on the phone. He was undoubtedly calling Jessica to warn her, spinning some story about his crazy, jealous wife. My phone lit up under the duvet. A message from Chloe. "Evidence received and backed up. With this, he's done. Come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We need to talk strategy. And this time, listen to everything I say." I replied with a simple okay and permanently deleted the conversation history. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling shadows. My mind was strangely calm, like the eye of a hurricane. The old Elena would have spent the night crying into her pillow, begging for answers. But the woman lying here now just felt like laughing. The absurdity of it all was almost comedic. The bedroom door creaked open. Derek tiptoed in and lay down next to me as if nothing had happened. In the darkness, I could hear him deliberately holding his breath, pretending to be asleep. "Derek," I broke the silence suddenly, my voice cutting through the dark. "Yeah?" His voice cracked. "What resort are you going to in Palm Springs again?" His body tensed visibly under the sheets. "Just a standard resort. One that the firm has a corporate deal with." "Why?" "Oh, really?" I chuckled softly, a sound that made him flinch. "It's not the Oasis Club again, is it? I heard their private villas with the infinity pools are super expensive this time of year." Derek sat up with a start, the sheets pooling around his waist. "Have you been spying on me?" "Spying?" I turned my head to look at him. The moonlight filtering through the blinds illuminated his face, twisted by a mix of panic and defensive anger. "Is there a need? You forgot to block me on your old Facebook account from college." Check-in at the Oasis Club popped right up. "By the way, the Tiffany necklace in the picture was beautiful. It really suits her." Derek's face contorted into a snarl. Elena, how dare you look at my phone? That's an invasion of privacy. Compared to you cheating on me looking at your public Facebook isn't a big deal, don't you think? I sat up and turned on the bedside lamp, flooding the room with harsh light. 3 years of marriage with separate accounts. I've been an idiot serving your whole toxic family, paying the mortgage, and it turns out you had someone else on the side spending our money. Derek, you really don't disappoint me. Derek's face turned pale, then crimson. Suddenly, he grabbed a decorative pillow and threw it with all his might against the wall, a violent outburst I had never seen before. Stop it. Do you think I did it because I wanted to? He shouted, his voice shaking with rage. I'm sick of seeing that long, depressing face of yours every day when I come home. Jessica is 100 times more affectionate than you. She knows how to make a man happy, how to make me feel like a king. I watched his mad outburst in silence. Suddenly, it all seemed so ridiculous. This man, this tantrum-throwing child, was who I had defied my parents to marry. A coward who, after cheating, still had the audacity to blame the victim. All right, let's get a divorce, I said lightly, as if ordering coffee. You can go be a king with Jessica, and I'll live my life in peace. Divorce? Derek burst out laughing, a cruel, mocking sound. In your dreams, Elena. Half of this house is mine. If you get a divorce, how are you going to live? Your measly marketing salary won't even cover the property tax, let alone the mortgage. So, that was it. He had it all figured out. He was banking on my financial fear. He was sure I would never dare to leave the security of the marriage. Seeing his smug, arrogant face, I laughed a genuine, amused laugh. Well, we'll see. Derek hadn't expected that reaction and was left speechless, his mouth hanging open. I lay back down, turned off the light, and turned my back on him. I could feel his gaze of bewilderment and anger burning into my back in the darkness. Elena, he finally hissed through clenched teeth. Don't you dare do anything stupid. I've had my eye on this house for a while. My brother Brian is getting married, and he needs a place to start his family. I closed my eyes, my nails digging into my palms until they bled. So, that was the endgame. The family had planned this for a long time. They wanted to bleed me dry, live in my house, and in the end, take it from me to give to my brother-in-law. Derek eventually started snoring, the sleep of the remorseless. I didn't sleep a wink. At dawn, I got up quietly. I packed some essentials and important documents into a discreet duffel bag, then slipped out of the house like a ghost. The morning air was exceptionally crisp, biting at my exposed skin. I took a deep, stabilizing breath and called Chloe. Chloe, I've decided. I'm going to get back everything that's mine. Every single cent. On the other end of the line, Chloe's voice was full of fierce determination. That's the spirit. I'll be waiting for you at the firm. The war has begun. I hung up and hailed a cab. In the rearview mirror, I watched the house where I had lived for 3 years get smaller and smaller. This time, I wasn't going to falter. Chloe's law firm was on the 45th floor of a glass skyscraper in the downtown financial district. I sat in the polished conference room. The city sprawled out beneath me like a game board. Across from me, Chloe introduced Mr. Sterling, a senior partner with eyes like a hawk. They had printed out all the evidence. The situation is worse than we thought, Elena, Chloe said, adjusting her glasses as she slid a stack of bank statements toward me. According to these records, over the last 2 years, Derek has transferred a total of $385,000 to that Jessica person. In legal terms, this is a clear act of dissipation of marital assets. I nodded in silence, my stomach churning. My fingers unconsciously traced those cold, black numbers. $385,000, the equivalent of several years of my hard-earned salary, and he had given it so easily to another woman while scrutinizing my grocery receipts. But the most serious issue is this. Mr. Sterling unfolded a larger schematic. I ran a credit check. 3 months ago, Derek took out a home equity loan for $950,000. The purpose listed is home renovation, Mr. Sterling continued. But you didn't have any recent renovation plans for your house, did you? $950,000? I looked up in shock, the room spinning. He didn't say a word to me. He wasn't going to tell you. Chloe scoffed, her voice dripping with disgust. That money, exactly 1 week after it entered his account, was transferred to a title company. We think that scumbag bought that woman a house in her name. My voice trembled. Do you really think so? It's virtually certain, Mr. Sterling nodded. But that's not the most urgent problem. Look at this digital transcript. He opened a file containing text messages between Derek and his brother-in-law, Brian. Bro, did you tell your wife about the mortgage on the house yet? Brian had asked. Not yet. I was planning to tell her after the family trip. She's been a little weird lately. I think she suspects something with Jessica. So what? We have to make a down payment for the condo my fiancé and I saw next week. Don't be in such a hurry. My name is on the deed to the house too. Even if she objects, she can't do anything. If she gets difficult, I'll tell Mom to talk to her. She always listens to Mom. I stared at the screen, a rock crushing my chest. They had been planning to mortgage my house, my safe haven, to buy a luxury condo for my brother-in-law all along. They viewed me as nothing more than a piggy bank to be raided. Legally, to get a mortgage on a jointly owned asset, the consent of just one of the owners is sometimes enough if the bank isn't diligent, Mr. Sterling explained gravely. If they act on this $950,000 loan immediately, you'll be in a very unfavorable financial position. Then what do I do? I clenched my fists until my nails bit into my palms. Do I have to stand by and watch them rob me? Of course not. A sharp, predatory light gleamed in Chloe's eyes. We have to beat them to it. Your parents paid the down payment, and you paid for most of the renovation. You have proof of everything. We can argue that Derek is the main culprit in the breakdown of the marriage. I thought for a moment, and then the image of the safe flashed in my mind. Chloe, Mr. Sterling, what if I could prove that the joint tenancy deed was forged? I saw it in the safe. The signature. It wasn't mine. And the notary stamp looked wrong. Mr. Sterling's demeanor shifted instantly from concern to aggressive. He leaned forward. You have proof. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember perfectly that in the beginning, it was a tenancy in common with unequal shares. The document in his safe said joint tenancy 50/50. If he changed that without my consent, this could be our turning point, Chloe exclaimed, hitting the table excitedly. If we prove the deed involves falsification of documents, not only would the mortgage be void, but Derek could face serious criminal charges. We laid out a general plan. First, I had to secretly verify the authenticity of the deed at the county recorder. Second, we had to verify the separate asset status of the original purchase. And finally, prepare the litigation for divorce. As I was leaving the office, Chloe tossed me a set of keys. It's a small studio apartment I own near the marina. It's empty now. Stay there. Don't go back to the house tonight. A cornered rat like Derek could do anything. I hugged her, holding back tears. As I exited the building, the sunlight was dazzling, but I didn't squint. I was ready to burn their world down. My phone rang violently again, shaking me from my daze as I stepped out of the office building. It was Derek. I took a deep breath, channeling my inner actress, and answered. Elena, where have you been? Derek's voice was filled with impatient anger. My mom just called me. She said you still haven't sent her the tracking number for the gift boxes. She needs them for tomorrow's brunch. I almost laughed aloud. After everything, the theft, the betrayal, the lies, his priority was still running errands for his mother-in-law. I'm out running errands. I have some household things to take care of, I said, my voice eerily calm. The boxes have been ordered. They'll be delivered directly to your mom's house this afternoon. Derek paused, seemingly bewildered by my cooperation. Oh, okay. Hey, about last night. I was very drunk. I don't remember anything I said. Yeah, you were wasted, I replied, feigning ignorance. You just mumbled and passed out. Anyway, when are you coming home? I'll be late. Last-minute prep for the family trip. Don't wait up. I hung up and went straight to the county recorder's office. With a copy of the original deed and my ID, I successfully viewed the property's historical records. Indeed, the screen flashed the truth. Originally, it was a tenancy in common. Elena Miller, 70%, Derek Black 30%. However, the current active deed indicated a 50/50 joint tenancy. That meant Derek had definitely committed falsification of documents. I held back my euphoria, immediately took a picture, and sent it to Chloe. Bingo. The jerk falsified the type of ownership. Now I need the physical original. I decided to take a calculated risk and go back to the house one last time. At 4 p.m., assuming Derek was at the firm, I unlocked the front door. But the moment I stepped in, I knew something was wrong. The living room was in disarray, and the drawers of the hallway console were wide open. I crept upstairs. Through the crack in the office door, I saw Derek sweating profusely, rummaging through papers like a maniac. He kept cursing under his breath. He had come home early to destroy the evidence. I walked in, slamming the door deliberately. "Honey? I'm home." Derek jumped, spinning around. He forced a smile, but the beads of sweat on his forehead gave him away. "Oh, hi. I was just looking for some old tax forms. Why are you back so early?" I asked innocently. "Hey, have you seen the house deed?" He blurted out, ignoring my question. "I need it to verify some insurance info for the trip." Just as I expected. Inside, I smiled coldly. "The deed?" I pretended to think. "You know, last month the HOA asked us to update the owner info. I took it to make a copy, and of course, my mom wanted to see it. I left it with her." Derek's face went white as paper. "What? How could you give something so important to an outsider?" "My mom isn't an outsider," I shot back. "Besides, my name is on the deed, too." "What's the problem?" "Go get it right now," he yelled, a vein throbbing in his neck. "My mom left on a cruise this morning," I lied effortlessly. "She won't be back for 2 weeks. If you're in such a hurry, use the papers for your rental condo." Derek looked like he was about to explode, but he couldn't admit why he needed it without revealing his fraud. "Forget it," he snapped, grabbing his briefcase. "I'm leaving for the airport early tomorrow. I'll stay at a hotel tonight near LAX. He stormed out. As soon as his car left the driveway, I tore the office apart. Finally, inside a hollowed-out criminal law manual on the top shelf, I found it, the forged deed. I packed it instantly. Then, I called the bank. "This is Elena Miller. I suspect unauthorized activity on my joint account. I want to freeze accounts immediately." As I was finishing packing my suitcases, the doorbell rang. A woman in a sharp suit stood there holding a folder. "Is this the residence of Mr. Derek Black? I'm from First National Bank. He asked me to pick up the collateral documents for the loan." I stared at her. Derek was so arrogant he sent a bank employee to our house while I was still there. "I suggest you check the public notices," I said, my voice like ice. "This house is currently in litigation. The deed has been reported lost and stolen. If your bank proceeds with this loan, you will be named as a co-defendant in a fraud lawsuit." The woman's face fell. She apologized and practically ran to her car. I closed the door, locked it for the last time, and walked away. Before leaving the gated community, I stopped my car at the security booth. I handed the front door key to the head of security, a kind older man who had known me since I moved in. "Mr. Henderson, I'm moving out," I said, my voice steady. "From this moment on, any matters related to the house regarding access must go through my legal representative. The house is under active litigation." "Understood, Miss Miller. Is everything all right?" "It will be," I smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. "Thank you for everything." I drove to the boutique hotel where my parents were staying. I felt lighter, as if gravity had released its hold on me. On the way, my phone pinged with a secure message from Chloe. "Restraining order granted by the judge ex parte due to the evidence of fraud. We've served the banks. All bank statements reflect a hold. We've also published the notice of the lost deed. It's now legally effective." I exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. I thanked her and walked into the hotel lobby. My parents were waiting. My dad, usually a stoic man, hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. "We're here, honey. We're not going anywhere," he whispered. A week later, the silence broke. I was sitting in Mr. Sterling's office reviewing the newly drafted divorce petition when he handed me a notification. "The court has processed the restraining order against Mr. Black's financial movements. He tried to use his credit cards an hour ago." I nodded, turning to the last page. Derek's reaction was more violent and immediate than I had imagined. He had flown to Palm Springs early to meet his family trip entourage, likely to impress Jessica. But when he tried to check into the luxury villa at the Oasis Club, his card was declined, then the backup card, then the joint account. humiliated in front of his brother-in-law and mistress. He had to ask his brother for cash just to buy lunch. He's on his way back to LA right now, Mr. Sterling warned, checking his watch. He's driving at 90 miles per hour. Just as he finished speaking, my phone started ringing frantically. Derek's name flashed on the screen. It was the 10th number he had used since I blocked him. I pressed the call button and put him on speakerphone, signaling Mr. Sterling to record. Elena. Have you gone completely insane? Derek's scream echoed off the glass walls of the office. How dare you sue me and freeze accounts? I'm stranded here. Mr. Black, I said calmly. I ask you to watch your words. My lawyer is recording this conversation for the plaintiff's record. There was a noticeable pause on the other end, the heavy breathing of a trapped animal. Then his tone softened, a sickeningly sweet manipulation. Elena, honey, do we really have to do this? We can sit down and talk things out calmly. We're family. I smiled disdainfully. When you committed falsification of documents regarding the deed, why didn't you think to talk to me? When you took your mistress on a family trip, passing her off as your wife to your relatives, why didn't you think to talk? It's all a misunderstanding. Derek hurried to explain, his voice cracking. Jessica is just a distant cousin of Brian's fiancée. The family group chat photos were a joke. And the deed. That must be a clerical error by the county. Mr. Black, I cut off his clumsy lies. I'll see you in court. I hung up. Less than an hour later, I received an urgent alert from the security app connected to the house's front gate. Derek had arrived, and he wasn't alone. He had brought his parents. They were at the doorman's booth, making a scene, demanding the new keys. We need to go there, I told Mr. Sterling. I need to look him in the eye. We headed there immediately. From a distance, we could already hear my mother-in-law's shrill voice piercing the air. My son is the owner of this house. Why won't you let him in? Did that ungrateful woman bribe you? The doorman looked flustered but stood his ground. Ma'am, Miss Miller filed a formal report. Legally, at this moment, she is the primary resident. That's ridiculous, my father-in-law shouted, hitting the counter. Half of that house belongs to my son. Who does that Elena think she is? I took a deep breath, stepped out of Mr. Sterling's car, and walked straight toward them. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, it's been a while, I said, my voice projecting clearly. How was the family trip to Palm Springs? That family photo turned out beautiful, though I noticed you cropped me out of the narrative years ago. The three of them spun around in unison. Their faces were a sight to behold. Derek's face was purple with rage, and my mother-in-law looked like she wanted to tear me apart with her bare hands. Elena. My mother-in-law lunged at me, her manicured claws reaching for my neck. How dare you, you ungrateful wretch. Treating my son this way after we took you in. Mr. Sterling stepped in, blocking her path with his imposing frame. Ma'am, I advise you to control yourself. Assaulting a plaintiff in an active legal case is a felony. We are recording the entire situation. My mother-in-law's hand froze in midair. She turned pale, realizing this wasn't a family squabble anymore. It was legal warfare. Well, so now you're bringing high-priced lawyers to confront your in-laws, Derek sneered, pushing his mother aside, his eyes bloodshot from stress and the long drive. What exactly do you want, Elena? It's very simple. I looked him directly in the eyes, seeing the hollowness behind them. I want a divorce. I want my house back. And I want compensation for every dollar you stole. Don't you dare dream of it. Derek yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. My name is on the deed, too. That house is a marital asset. Don't think you're going to keep it all to yourself while I sleep on my brother's couch. Oh, really? I calmly pulled a thick, color-coded folder from my designer tote bag. This is the certified original registration from the county archives. It states clearly, tenancy in common. My share is 70% my down payment, my renovation costs, and yours is a minority 30%. It is clearly specified. I took a step closer, holding the document up like a shield. The document you locked in your safe? The one with the joint tenancy status. That is a falsification of documents. And in the state of California, that is already a felony. Derek's face turned white, the color draining away as if a plug had been pulled. It's a lie. You're bluffing. And that's not all, I continued to press, my voice rising just enough to be heard by the neighbors peeking through their blinds. You forged my signature on a $950,000 mortgage contract to buy a luxury condo for your brother-in-law. You also transferred $385,000 of our money to your mistress Jessica. In legal terms, this is dissipation of marital assets. I looked at him with icy contempt. All of these are serious causes for an at-fault divorce. According to the law, not only would you not be entitled to any part of the house, but you might have to pay me substantial compensation. My mother-in-law couldn't take it anymore. She stomped her foot, her jewelry rattling. That's impossible. My son is a successful lawyer. He has been supporting you for years, paying for your lifestyle, and this is how you repay him? Biting the hand that feeds you? Supporting me? I almost laughed, the sound sharp and incredulous. Mother-in-law, for 3 years, we've had separate accounts. The mortgage on the house, the electricity, the water, the expensive HOA fees. I paid for all of it myself. Your successful son gave me $200 a month for expenses, an amount that didn't even cover the organic groceries he demanded I cook for him. My mother-in-law was speechless, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. My father-in-law, realizing the tide was turning, looked at me with narrowed eyes, trying a different tactic. Elena, we're family, he said, smoothing his tie. There's no need to go to these extremes. Derek made a mistake. But you haven't done things right either. You've been cold. A man can make a small mistake once in a while. We can fix the paperwork. A small mistake. I interrupted him, my patience vaporizing. Falsification of documents is a small mistake. Stealing nearly $1 million is a small mistake. Taking your mistress on a family trip, treating her like the daughter-in-law while leaving your legal wife at home, is a small mistake. Derek suddenly lunged forward, his eyes wild, trying to snatch the folder from my hands. But Mr. Sterling was faster. He stepped in, blocking Derek with a firm shove. Derek stumbled back, looking like a cornered beast. Elena, don't pressure me, he spat, pointing a shaking finger at my face. I know a lot of people in this town. I can make it so you can't find a marketing job in all of Los Angeles. I will destroy your reputation, threatening the opposing party with professional ruin, Mr. Sterling said calmly, tapping the screen of his phone. Mr. Black, this recording will be very damaging evidence against you in the ethics hearing. Derek finally realized the gravity of the situation. The fight drained out of him instantly. His attitude changed 180 degrees. Elena, honey, I'm so sorry, he stammered, tears welling up in his eyes. I was wrong. Truly. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking. Give me one more chance. I'll leave Jessica today. From now on, I'll do whatever you say. We can go to counseling. Seeing him cry only filled me with disgust. There was a time when that same expression of helplessness would have softened my heart, and I would have forgiven his betrayals and lies again and again. But that version of Elena was dead. It's too late, Derek, I said calmly. I've given you too many chances. I just want to end this marriage as soon as possible. In your dreams, he suddenly yelled, switching back to rage. I'll drag this litigation out for years. Let's see who gives up first. 3 years, 5 years. I'll bleed you dry in legal fees. That's not up to you to decide, Mr. Sterling said, holding out another folder, the nuclear option. This is the evidence Miss Miller has collected about your cohabitation with Miss Jessica. It includes the lease agreement in her name paid by you, and intimate photos. If this is presented to the court, you will face immediate criminal charges for fraud. You may also have to pay compensation for emotional distress. Derek collapsed into a plastic garden chair near the booth, looking like a deflated balloon. My mother-in-law tried to screech something more, but my father-in-law silenced her with a sharp look. Both of them finally realized that their precious, golden boy's son had hit a concrete wall. I'll give you 3 days, I said, standing up tall, smoothing my blazer. If you agree to a mutual divorce, the house remains mine, and the rest of the assets will be divided according to the law. If you want to continue with the lawsuit, we'll see each other in court, but be prepared to face prison. As I left the doorman's booth, I sighed in relief, letting the California sun warm my face. My phone rang immediately. It was Emma, my old college roommate from London. The attached file was an official job offer, marketing director at the Singapore headquarters. The salary was triple what I was currently making in LA. Have you made a decision yet? Mr. Sterling asked, packing his briefcase. I nodded, looking back at the building one last time. As soon as I finish this war, I'm going to Singapore to start a new life. That's a smart decision, Mr. Sterling smiled grimly. But be careful. A narcissist like Derek won't give up easily. When they lose control, they resort to chaos. He was right. 3 days passed, and Derek, as expected, didn't sign the papers. Instead, he launched a scorched earth smear campaign. First, his relatives called me one after another, guilt-tripping me to save the family. Then, he posted a long, tearful manifesto on Facebook, insinuating that I had abandoned him for a richer man and that I was mentally unstable. Finally, he showed up at my marketing agency and filed a formal complaint with HR, accusing me of immoral conduct and using company resources for my personal litigation. Luckily, I was prepared. When HR called me in, I simply presented my letter of resignation and the job offer from the Singapore tech giant. At the same time, Chloe helped me publish a succinct press statement on several local news portals, clarifying the timeline and attaching the bank statements showing the transfers to Jessica. Public opinion flipped instantly. Derek's social media pages were flooded with comments from indignant internet users. The most satisfying twist? A particularly motivated internet sleuth discovered that Jessica, the love of his life, was actually dating 3 other married men simultaneously. Derek became the laughingstock of the entire city. This time he's really done for, Chloe said with satisfaction over the phone. He has no money, no girl, and no reputation. But we underestimated Derek's audacity. One rainy night, I returned to the house one last time to finish packing the fragile items. Suddenly, the front door crashed open. Derek stumbled in, reeking of cheap whiskey, followed closely by his brother-in-law, Brian. Elena, Derek roared, his eyes bloodshot and wild. You've ruined my life, so I'm going to ruin yours. Brian raised his phone, recording. Sister-in-law, you'd better drop the lawsuit. If not, this video of your reconciliation with my brother will go viral tomorrow. We'll say you begged him to come back. I understood their plan instantly. They wanted to stage a forced reconciliation, or perhaps something darker, to undermine my credibility as a plaintiff. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird, but I kept my composure. Derek, do you know this is breaking and entering? Do you know this will add criminal charges to your file? A crime? Derek scoffed, stepping closer. What crime can there be between a husband and a wife? I'll tell you what, after tonight, whether you drop the lawsuit or not, you're finished. The moment he lunged at me, I pressed the silent panic button I had kept in my pocket since the restraining order was issued. A piercing alarm shattered the air, and within seconds, 2 private security guards hired by Mr. Sterling broke through the patio doors and pinned the Black brothers to the floor. The police are on their way, I said, looking down coldly at Derek, whose face was pressed against the hardwood floor he claimed to own. This time, with trespassing, violation of a restraining order, and attempted assault, you'll be in jail for a long time. Derek's face turned ashen. Brian started to cry and plead, blaming his brother instantly. Elena, it was Derek's idea. Please forgive us. In the distance, the police sirens wailed, getting closer. I knew the charade was finally over. As the officers hauled him up and clicked the handcuffs onto his wrists, Derek suddenly turned to me, his eyes filled with a pathetic mixture of hate and longing. Elena, did you ever actually love me? I was silent for a moment, listening to the rain hammer against the roof. Yes, I answered sincerely, but now, I feel nothing but contempt. The police car drove away, taking my past with it. The day before the first divorce hearing, I received another call from the police. It turned out Derek's stupidity knew no bounds. During his family trip to Palm Springs, he had used the falsified deed to secure a hard money loan of $150,000 from a predatory lender. Now that the lender discovered the forgery, they had reported him to the FBI for wire fraud. Prison? I asked Mr. Sterling. It's guaranteed, Mr. Sterling said with certainty. And this benefits us immensely. The judge will recognize Derek's serious culpability. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. Derek arrived in a jumpsuit, looking like he had aged 20 years. When the judge asked why he had committed the fraud, his answer stunned the room. My brother was getting married, and his fiancé's family wasn't contributing anything. I just wanted to help my family look good. And for that vanity, You falsified documents, forged a signature, and committed dissipation of marital assets," the judge asked severely. The final verdict came down like a hammer. The judge granted the divorce immediately. The house was fully awarded to me. Derek was ordered to return the $385,000 transferred to Jessica, and 70% of his remaining retirement savings were awarded to me as compensation for damages. As the judge read the verdict, Derek's face crumbled, and my mother-in-law fainted in the gallery. I walked out of the courthouse into the blinding light, finally free. The next morning, the real estate agent called with news that sounded like music. The house had sold for $1,450,000, a staggering $200,000 above the asking price. The buyer was a successful architect, a single mother who loved the renovation style and the proximity to top-tier schools. "She wants to close immediately," the agent said. "Does that work for you?" "Perfectly," I replied. "Let's sign the papers tomorrow." The signing was a blur of ink and handshakes. After the final signature, the buyer, a warm woman with kind eyes, took my hand. "Elena, I read about your case in the legal journals. You are incredibly brave. This house will be filled with joy again, I promise." "Thank you," I whispered, feeling a weight lift. "That's exactly what it needs." I went back one last time to say goodbye. The empty rooms echoed with my footsteps. The living room where Derek had thrown wine glasses. The office where he plotted his falsification of documents. The kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals unappreciated. I walked to the garden, looking at the roses I had tended with such care. "Goodbye," I said softly, closing the heavy oak door. This time, I didn't look back. As I drove out of the community gates, a disheveled figure jumped in front of my car. It was Brian, my brother-in-law. He looked gaunt, wearing stained sweatpants. "Elena." "Wait." He banged on my window. "Please, could you lend me some money? Derek is in jail. My fiancé left me because the condo deal fell through, and Mom is in the hospital with stress-induced hypertension." I lowered the window just an inch. "Brian, do you know your brother forged my signature to mortgage my home just to buy you a condo?" I didn't know where the money came from," he stammered, lying through his teeth. "You and your family are incredible," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Derek is in prison, your mom is sick, and you're broke. That isn't bad luck, Brian. That is the verdict of karma. I suggest you get a job." I rolled up the window and drove off, leaving him yelling insults in the rearview mirror. A week later, I landed in Singapore. The humid air and the dazzling skyline of Marina Bay felt like a rebirth. I threw myself into my new role as marketing director. The work was demanding but exhilarating. 1 month in, I received a final encrypted email from Mr. Sterling. The court had fully executed the judgment. The $385,000 Derek sent to Jessica had been clawed back, and the remaining compensation from Derek's liquidated retirement fund had hit my account. Also, Mr. Sterling wrote, "Jessica tried to flee with the cash, but she was caught at the border. She turned on Derek to save herself. They are destroying each other." I closed the laptop and sipped my wine, looking out at the Singapore Strait. I felt nothing for them anymore. Not hate. Not pity. Just indifference. 6 months passed. My team closed 2 massive contracts, and I was featured in Forbes Asia. But then, a call came from an LA area code. It was my mother-in-law, Elena. Her voice was weak, stripped of its usual arrogance. "I was wrong. Everything that happened. Please forgive Derek. He's sick in prison. He needs money for the commissary. He asks for you every day." "Ma'am," I cut her off coldly. "First, you are no longer my mother-in-law. Second, if Derek is in jail, it is because he broke the law. And finally, do not contact me again, or I will file another restraining order." I hung up and blocked the number. A year later, the company offered me a promotion back in Los Angeles to lead the global division. I hesitated. Did I want to return to the city of my trauma? But then I realized, staying away was running. Returning as a winner was conquering. I accepted. My welcome back event was a high-profile Women in Leadership gala in downtown LA. I wore a royal blue tuxedo suit, looking nothing like the meek housewife from 3 years ago. I gave a speech about financial independence and resilience. True security never comes from a husband's promise or a prenup. I told the crowd of 500 women, It comes from your own competence. When you lose everything, you find out who you really are. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped off the stage, security stopped a commotion at the back entrance. It was Derek. He had been released early on parole for overcrowding. He was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit, holding a wilted bouquet of gas station flowers. He looked aged, broken, and desperate. "Elena," he shouted, trying to push past the guards. "I just want to congratulate you. I'm sorry. I have nothing left." I stopped and looked at him. The man who once terrorized me, who planned to steal my home during a family trip, was now being dragged out like a vagrant. "Let him go," I told the guards. I walked up to him, maintaining a safe distance. "Elena, give me one chance," he begged, falling to his knees. "Valerie stole everything. My family is ruined. I know I was wrong." "Derek," I said, my voice calm and projecting to the silent ballroom. "You aren't sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you lost. Goodbye." I signaled security, and they escorted him out. He screamed my name, but I turned my back and walked toward my parents, who were beaming with pride in the front row. That night, I signed a book deal for my memoirs. I opened my laptop to the first blank page and wrote the dedication, "To the woman I was, who had to break so the woman I am could be built."